Hey everyone, how's it going? Okay. Hi, I'm Shelly. Y'all don't care, but I'm here with my friend Sadie, and you do care. So can we just give a giant yell for Sadie Robertson, everyone? She's amazing. She deserves a yell. We are so thrilled, Sadie and I, to get to be here today. We have just the most incredible opportunity to talk about how Jesus and culture mix. And I love every single thing that's happened in the first 2 days of Passion. Are you guys freaking out a little bit? It's incredible. You know, Louie and I have been doing Passion for 21 years, and nothing has ever happened like has happened in the last 2 days. And the way I see that is only God. He is the only one creative enough 21 years in to be coming up with new material. And God is consistently God, but he has a fresh way of always presenting himself. And the last couple of days have just been full of that. And so I want to just say, way to go, God. Whatever you're into in these days, we're into too. And we're so grateful just to be in the space with God. It's incredible. But also, I think it's also important that we break down things so that we don't leave with things in theory. We don't say, hey, it's really important to live for the glory of God without talking about how we can actually live for the glory of God. How do we actually implement in our lives being in culture but not swallowed up by culture? How do we actually implement living lives that matter for something more than ourselves? They're absolutely not about ourselves, and yet we can leverage all of ourselves into that moment. And so I thought it would be helpful, Louie and I both did, and with our whole team, to just spend a couple of minutes talking about those things. And as you know, Sadie has a lot of interest in the world. She has incredible things that she's a part of. I know you've heard of the little show Duck Dynasty. You guys know about it. Her family is an incredible family. Louie was introducing them earlier at Phillips, and we'll get to see them there tonight. But I love that her family basically went on national TV. They lived their lives authentically and in such a way that Jesus was able to shine, right? It's incredible to watch. But it's also in Sadie's heart to do a lot of other things. And I want to give her 1 second just to talk about what some of those things are that she's involved in culture. And then we're going to talk about how that mixes with Jesus and how we can be a light in every one of those moments. So tell us some of the things you love. Tell us some of the things you're doing. And if you don't mention the stuff I love, then I'll bring it up.
And it is, yes, seriously. I'm so honored. Her and Louie are the real deal. They have been the biggest champions and supporters, and like without them, I always tell Shelly there's like one of the most special moments because I got to speak on the Winter Jam tour this year. And y'all, yeah, shout out for Winter Jam. I was so nervous, okay? Like so nervous because that's a little scary, right? And I'll never forget when Louie and Shelly were there and I'm like freaking out. I think I prayed all day. I'm not even kidding. Like I was on my knees all day. I was so nervous, which is a good thing. But after I got off stage, I'll never forget this moment. Louie and Shelly were both standing there, and they both came up, and they just hugged me, and they were just supporting me and encouraging me. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, I will never forget that moment. It's one of my favorite moments in all of life, because these two people who are leading this amazing charge, who are like literally generals of our generation, leading this army for Christ, came and supported me and hugged me and said I could do it. And it just like meant the world. So thank you for doing that. It means a lot. It really does.
Believe in you.
So some things I'm doing, I guess I started the Live Original tour, and yes, shout out to the people who came. It's so awesome. It's our second year in, and gosh, I just love every second of it. That kind of started randomly, but I wrote a book called Live Original, and that was, ironically, I wrote the book because I was thinking, I'm too afraid to speak, and so I'll write a book, and then I won't have to say anything. I'll just write it all down. Well, yeah,
brilliant.
Obviously didn't work out because I'm sitting here on stage right now. But that's how God is. He's so funny, and I'm telling you what, whatever our weakness is, he really will turn it for a strength for him. And so I wrote it all down, and then it actually gave me more confidence to speak it, because then I was like, oh wait, I really believe this. God is really good. He really is who he says he is, so I should go speak it confidently. And so I wrote the book, then the tour came. Different things are happening with that. I have a new book coming out called Live Fearless. Whoop. Super excited about that. So just different things. God has really opened a lot of different doors. Some things with movies and different things like that. And and I don't know, it's all been fun. But
You have a fashion line. Which
Yes,
is awesome.
I have that.
Yeah.
It's been crazy. Seriously, y'all, like if you would have told me any of this would have happened, I would have like not believed you at all. But God has been so good. And like she said like we'll intertwine it all, but it really like you can't separate Jesus and everything that's happened because it makes no sense for it to happen without God. Like I'm a small town girl from West Monroe, Louisiana, who grew up at a camp literally, and like this happened. So God is good, and it all intertwines.
Yeah.
It can't be
So
separated.
You're 20 years old.
Yes.
Which I think a lot of people in the room can relate to. If you're 20 years old, raise your hand. Anyone?
Woo!
Okay.
Awesome.
What I love about Sadie, too, is that she's 20 years old and that she's a Passion attender. So the last 3 years, Sadie's been at Passion in one of your seats. And now this year at Passion, she's in this seat. And I think that's just the way God works, you know? He works in our lives all the time. And occasionally he gives us an opportunity by putting a microphone in our hand or by putting us on a larger stage to actually speak up for him. But it's all the same. Whether Sadie's sitting right there, we were just sitting right up there, or if she's sitting right here, she's allowing God to work in her life, and I love that about her. I also love that you have done a lot of what you've done in the first 20 years of your life afraid.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
you mentioned, I didn't feel super confident. I wasn't overwhelmingly sure, but I felt like obedience was more important than my comfortability.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. This is huge. Somebody told me actually one time, I think it was my mom, because my mom has spoken into the fear of my life like my whole life, and she has just declared truth over me in that area, and that has been a huge help. But it's really crazy because I remember, I'll go back to Winter Jam. Actually, no, I'll take it even back further because this is kind of how crazy of the situation. I literally was in a seat just like y'all at this summer camp called Verge. And I went, and at the time that I had gone, I was like, I was about to go into my senior year of high school. I wasn't really sure if I was going to be homeschooled or if I was going to go back to school or what I was going to do. And I remember going into this praying like, God, like, what do you have for me? Just like lead me in a direction here so I can know what to do. I just finished Dancing with the Stars. And honestly, I was like kind of in this weird place of like, I don't really want to be like famous and I don't see myself as a celebrity, but I just got off Dancing with the Stars, so how do you go back to high school? This is like a weird spot. And so I went to this summer camp, and I was just sitting in the seat, and all of a sudden, this woman named Alex Seeley, she has a church called The Belonging in Nashville. She gets up, and she preaches this message, and it was like oh my gosh, it was the craziest thing. Like, it wasn't just what she was saying, but it was how she was saying it, the confidence she carried, the boldness she spoke it with. And as I was sitting there, I was like, that's it. And I just felt the Lord say, like, that's what you're going to do. That's what you're called to do. Just speak my name and speak it bold, speak it loud, and speak it everywhere. And I remember him showing me this vision. It's kind of funny, but it was like all these, like, it was Instagram, okay? And I remember him saying, not your name, but mine. And so basically he's saying, you know, use the tools I've given you. Use Instagram, use the different things, use your life, but it's not your name I want people to see. It's not your profile, it's mine. So make sure you're being a demonstration of that.
Beautiful.
And so I remember sitting there and being like, okay, I don't know how this is going to look. I don't know what it's going to look like, but that's what I'll do. And I remember calling my mom after that and saying, like, Mom, I'm going to be a speaker. She's like, okay, good luck. What? I'm like, literally, because like, she's like, knows me. I'm terrified of public speaking. Like, if you called on me to read at school, I would like cry. Probably not really, but like, I was that afraid. And so she's like, okay. And I remember her just like really like speaking life into me for that. So whenever I did Winter Jam, I was so afraid. And Mom said, okay, just do it afraid. Just do it afraid. And I remember I thought that was so interesting that she said, do it afraid, and just do it, and kind of made me do it. But when I got there, I realized that, like, you may not feel like you have like everything ready, because you probably won't have everything ready. You don't have everything you need. You may be a little afraid. But the moment you step on the battlefield, like the minute I stepped on stage, like that's when God caught me, he carried me, and that's actually where I found my confident trust in him. It was like at the place that fear was, that's also the place fear was shattered. And it was like absolutely amazing. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So when you, one of the first times that I ever knew you to speak was at Passion City Church to our college crew.
That was the first time I ever spoke.
Some of the people in the room were actually there that night.
Yeah. Ooh,
she did an incredible job. Let's just say you were slightly nervous.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to you leading up to it, and I was just asking kind of about what you were going to be sharing, and you were talking about sort of what you felt like God was saying to you, but also the fear that kind of came alongside of that. Mm-hmm. Talk about the process of how you got to, I'm going to say yes to you. I'm going to come to your church and say yes to that.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to operate between then, I think that was 2 months before,
like 2 months.
You actually showed up and delivered what God had given you. And just to mention, I think that talk has been watched 617,000 times on the World Wide Web since that moment, which wasn't very long ago. And I think it's part of our obedience that actually leads to God's fulfillment of his promise.
Yeah.
So can you talk about your yes and how that worked?
Absolutely, yeah. It's actually really crazy how this all happened. Because the only time I had ever really spoken before at Passion City was Winter Gym and different events, and all I did was speak for 10 minutes, and it was a little bit of encouragement. And so when they asked me to speak at Passion City, I was so confused. I was like, what? Okay, I've never even spoken before. I'm going to start at Passion City. Are you kidding me? Okay, God, this has to be you. And I remember in that point in my life, it was not a fear of man, and it was not a fear of I'm speaking at a church with a lot of people that has big influence. It was a fear of the Lord, of the weight of what this looked like. And it was God, you're going to allow me to stand in your church and speak about who you are to a generation who is desperate to hear you. Whoa, that will send you to your knees. And I remember asking God every single day to strengthen my passion, and it really changed my whole life. And it's kind of ironic that I literally found my passion through the process of praying for passion. So I thought I was just praying for this one night and this one event. Little did I know, my whole life was radically changing through the power of prayer. I was learning through how to gain passion every single day of my life. So I remember as soon as they asked me, I asked God to search my heart. I said, okay, I need to surrender anything that's going to be a distraction for the next 2 months. So for those 2 months, that's the time I deleted my social media. I got rid of everything that was distracting. Even for a few weeks, I went without makeup, and it was not too cute because I was having a major breakout. But I was God, literally whatever is distracting me from spending time that's useful and that's with you, take it away. I need to fully surrender. And it was a crazy, crazy thing. And I always tell people, Kristen Kane talks about God being a radical God. If you want to see God be a radical God, be a radical person. Be radical for him, because he will show up in radical ways. I remember texting Shelly and asking her, I said, what's Passion City's foundation verse? And she sent it to me, and you make it say it better than I do, but it's in Isaiah, and it's talking about how every morning you long to hear God's word, and every evening you long to I'm going to misquote it now. Your name, you're renowned. So it's basically just talking about he's the desire of my soul. So every single day I woke up and I said that, and I just started putting that into action, and every single day God would show up in radical ways. And it was so funny because it sounds so practical, but I would just begin to read. I had this dream during this time. It sounds crazy. I had a dream that Beth Moore told me. This is so weird.
You gotta love a dream with Beth Moore.
You gotta love a dream.
Dear God, thank you.
So I remember Beth Moore told me in this dream. She said, Sadie, you need to go read your Bible. And
now you're talking like her.
And she said, and you need to go highlight your story in the story. And I woke up and I said, that's actually really cool. Thanks, Beth, and thank you, God. So I woke up, and I started to read the Bible, and I started to highlight characteristics of people in the Bible that I wanted to embody. So I started to highlight things that I could see myself actually doing, and then God started doing the same things he did for them in my life. Okay. For instance, in the book Genesis, talking about Abraham sent his servant out to go find a wife for Isaac. His servant's on the way, and he's thinking, God, listen, you have really got to show up for me, because if you do not, then this is going to be awkward. So if I know it's you, then you're going to tell this woman to come, and she's going to not only ask me for water, but she's going to ask my camels too. And as soon as he said that, it says that Rebecca walks up, and she asks for him water and the camels. So I thought, okay, well, God answers you just like that. So I began to ask God for specific things, for specific words to speak at Passion, for specific direction. And I literally began to hear him say, or bring a person in my life say exactly what I needed to say, or answer the prayer that I just had prayed. So I'm telling you, God is a radical God who does radical things,
Yeah.
but you have to ask him in radical ways sometimes. You have to get rid of the distractions. You have to surrender it all. And so through that night of praying for passion, I literally found my passion in the Word of God.
Love it.
And it's like crazy. In those 2 months, that is really what has changed my life.
That's incredible.
So
It's
cool.
incredible. It's incredible.
So cool. He's
Love
good.
that. So one of the things I've seen you sort of deal with in your life, because I think it's really fun when we're real about this stuff, and fear is certainly one of the things, but self-image.
Yeah.
So I think particularly in the culture, every day there's an opportunity to compete with people because we're looking all day at their Instagram, at their Facebook feed. We're interacting with people in different ways than we ever have before, mostly by our phones. And just sort of talk about self-image and how people can be centered on themselves, still in self-image, even if it's improvement, and God image.
Yeah.
And how they actually differ from each other if we can actually see what God thinks about us instead of improving our image of ourselves.
That's so good. Wow, that's such a big question. It's so good. For me, I definitely have struggled with self-image, and I've talked about that a lot, and wrote a blog about it, done some videos about it, but I think it's really important to look girls face to face, and even guys too, and be real about what we struggle with on a day-to-day basis, and also not feed to that. So first I want to say that because we talk about how Instagram, we get on, and it's like, we get discouraged or we get disappointed or we get, we immediately get sad. And it's like, let's not feed to that, and let's make sure we're not doing that and making other people sad or making other people feel insecure. And so I think it is going to take us rising up and saying, I know this might be cool, this might be popular, this might be what the world wants, but we have to stand up and say we're not going to give it to them, because the more we feed, the more the fire flames, you know? And so for me, I think what I had to realize is there's a verse in Hebrews 10:35. It says, so then do not forget the confident trust that you have in the Lord, for it will be richly rewarded. And when I read that verse, kind of everything changed for me, because up to that point, I was like trying to find my confidence in like who I was, what I looked like, what social status was, how many friends I had, who my boyfriend was, whatever. But whenever I read that verse, I realized, because in that time, I was not confident at all. I was very insecure, terrible self-image, the whole 9 yards, really struggled with an eating disorder, all of it. Because I was trying to find my confidence in things that doesn't promise confidence. And when I read that verse, I realized, oh, wait a second, God doesn't promise I'm going to be confident in who I am. He never promises that. But if you're confident in who He is, you can be confident in who you are through the power of who He is in you. That's so good. And so for me, my friend Lainey, she's awesome. She sent me this the other day from a book, and I loved it. It said, I don't need anything from people that I already have from my God. And I like to say I don't need anything from people that I already have from my dad. Because if you think of him as your dad and you're his daughter, like, you will not look at yourself the way you think that you do now. I'm telling you, it's a totally different perspective whenever you find yourself through his eyes, through someone who radically loves you in an overwhelming way. And I know it may sound cheesy, it may sound repetitive, but I'm telling you what, nothing like, I heard that a million times, but until I looked in the mirror and chose to believe it, no matter what I saw, chose to believe it even before I saw what he saw, like, it changed everything for me. I remember being on my knees one day just crying because that finally clicked. It just finally clicked. So ask him. Look in the mirror, and no matter what you see, like, declare that over your life, that no, you are loved, you are beautiful, you are chosen, you are a daughter, even before you believe it. Sometimes it just takes speaking victory before you actually see it.
So good, Sadie. So good. I think it would be really cool, just because I know you and love you, but I've also seen you in seats, like we said, sitting out here. And I think you have an opportunity, because you're sitting here today, to actually look at the people who are in the seat you might have been in, and to actually speak a word of encouragement to their life. Mm-hmm. And I feel like 20-year-olds speaking to 20-year-olds is different than, and I won't say my age, 53-year-olds speaking to 20-year-olds. And so I think it's incredible when we get the opportunity to speak eyeball to eyeball, face to face, and we get to embrace people with words. Yeah. And we get to say to them, you know what, you're cherished daughter or son of the King. And so if you could say, and really pray is what we're doing, one thing over people today, what would that one thing be?
Man, okay, I may get emotional because this year has been so crazy for me. I am going to get emotional.
It's okay.
Because, like Christine said, she talked about how, we can go to heaven with chains, and spiritually we don't have them, but physically we do. And we walk in this world heavy, brokenhearted, we carry it. And when we carry that, it kind of silences our voice, and it makes us not fully believe what we're saying, but kind of, and we don't have confidence in it. And this year, for me, back in April, somebody asked me the same question she said. Somebody asked me, who told you that? Who told you the lies that you're believing? You need to locate that. Literally the same thing. And I asked God to show me. And I went back and I went through this process of literally just taking off the shame, taking off the fear, taking off the words. And every single word I took off, and every single amount of fear that I took off, it was like I became so weightless and so free. And the more free I became and the more weightless I became, the more in love I felt with him, because I was recognizing that he was the one taking these things off of me. And it so shocked me because this year it was like finally everything in my life that I had been blinded from, I could finally see. And so I went back and I thought about the time I was sitting in a seat at Verge, like I talked about. And that day, I don't know how many people can say that they remember the talk that Alex Siegley gave at Verge 4 years ago, but I do. And it changed my life. And I took that and it changed everything about the way I live. Live Original wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. Nothing would have happened without that one moment of me saying yes to God in that room. That one moment, that one woman, she used to talk to that one person. Yeah. And it just totally shocked me that God would use her, tell her, because I know her now, she only says yes to 8 events every year, that she said yes to that event, and that God would use her to speak a word and spark a passion in my heart that day that would carry on. He came after me. And today when I was sitting here and I was up there and I was looking at y'all, I saw the biggest pursuit of God after a generation. And I remember asking God this year, God, what would you say to my generation if you came and just spoke? And I just remember him saying that I love them. I love them. I'm coming after them. I'm reaching out for them. And all they have to do is reach back and say yes. I radically love them. All I need them to do is fall in love with me. And the only way we're going to fully fall in love with him is if you take off shame and if you take off fear. So as Christine declared a shameless generation, I just want to declare a fearless generation over us, because we can't experience the fullness of God when we have shame, we have fear, bringing us into hiding.
Yep.
So come out of hiding, get rid of the shame, get rid of the fear, and just say yes. But the thing is, it's not that things aren't scary, and it's not that people haven't spoken shame. But it's that I'm choosing to believe that my God is bigger, my God is better, my God has more promises, and I'm not going to stop until I find all of them, because I know he's going to fulfill them all. Right. And if there was a prayer, I'm praying, and I said this in a video the other day, that I'm praying for a wholehearted mentality, a wholehearted warrior mentality for our generation. And the word wholehearted, what inspired this is from the book of Joshua, and even before then, I think it's in Numbers when it's talking about Caleb and Joshua, when they went and they were sent out as spies. And as we know the story, they come back, and as all the other spies were trying to instill fear in the hearts of Israel and the Israelites, Caleb and Joshua came back and they spoke freedom. And they didn't speak fear. And this year, we came out of a year that literally, as Christine said, the New York Times said it was a year of shame, a shameful generation. The New York Times just put out a post last week that said 2017 was the year of anxiety. And I just think about that, and just as Caleb and Joshua, we saw it. Yeah, we saw it. We saw the fear. We saw the big things. We saw it happen. But next year, let's just believe and have a wholehearted spirit that God's going to do more, and that it's going to be better, and that it's going to be good, and we don't have to be afraid. And there's a word, there's a synonym that goes with the word wholehearted that I absolutely love, and I think y'all will too. One of the meanings of wholehearted, actually, a synonym means unqualified. I love that, because I am literally unqualified for about 100% of the things I'm doing right now. And that's okay. And sometimes I do it afraid, and sometimes and that's okay that you don't feel qualified, because you don't have to be qualified. God's not asking for qualification. He's not asking for things from you. All he's asking is that you will be totally wholehearted and absolutely ready to go out in the world and just devote your life to him and start declaring truth over this world. That's all we need. We don't need people who are qualified. We don't need a generation who is qualified. We just need a generation who is ready to say yes. So just say yes, and you will be amazed what's behind your yes.
It's so good. Let's tell Sadie thank you. Can you tell her?
Thank you so much.
Incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. It's fun.
Incredible.
Thank you.